Hey guys, Kimmy Vapes here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Reverie RDA designed by TenaciousTXVapes and manufactured by TimesVape. Let's have a vape, go down below, take a look and see what comes with the Reverie RDA. Okay, and here is the Reverie RDA designed by TenaciousTXVapes, otherwise known as Stan, who has a channel here on YouTube where he does reviews. He also is one of the hosts of Vape Stew. Also, just to let you guys know, it was sent to me by TimesVape for the purpose of this review. So let's go ahead and look at the packaging. I really like the packaging, very colorful, very much TenaciousTXVapes style. And then on the back here you'll see you have some specifications. This is going to be a 24mm diameter RDA. It is a squonkable vertical coil, single coil RDA. So let's go ahead and open up the box and see what comes with it. So you get the signature TimesVape polishing cloth, the Reverie RDA, with a random color drip tip. Mine happens to be purple. You also get a spare 810 Delrin drip tip, an accessory bag with spare O-rings, spare screwdriver, your regular 510 pin, and spare grub screws. You also get these two little white coiling rods, and these are ceramic coiling rods. One is 2.5 millimeters and the other is 3 millimeters in diameter. All right, let's go ahead and get the RDA out. So here is the Reverie RDA. So it is dual-sided airflow, adjustable, so whatever you do to one side it does to the other. So here on the bottom you'll say it says it's designed in the USA by Stan, and then it also says it's manufactured by TimesVape. You do have some serialized number on there, and of course again it says Reverie, and it does come with the squonk pin pre-installed, and the gold plated squonk pin is a flathead squonk pin. However, the flathead is closed so that you won't have any leaking coming from your 510. It'll make a nice seal for you. Turning it back over, let's go ahead and look at the airflow. So you have 3 rows of airflow holes. It's actually 3 rows of 4, and your airflow options are going to be, you can have 1 airflow hole open on either side, then 3 air holes open, 5 air holes open, full 6 straight down the center, and then it goes back to doing the same thing on the other side. You can have 5 airflows on that side, 3, and 1. And also what's really nice about this is you can see this little lip here, and that is because your airflow top cap actually comes down the whole side of the center portion of the RDA. So rather than your airflow adjusting on the inside, it's adjusting on the outside. So you'll just go ahead and grip it here, and very easy to grip because of this little fin here. I find that if I place my fingers right there on that fin, I can pull that top cap off no problem. Now, one thing that I do want to talk about with this particular my RDA, the one that I received, the stainless steel, I did notice that the first time, and Stan did in his video, which I will include a link of for you guys down in the description, Stan did mention this in his video when he was doing a show and tell, that when you first take off your top cap, when you first get it and it's not lubed up, because the tolerances on these O-rings are nice and tight, and I won't say they're too tight because honestly, even brand new, I was able to spin the airflow no problem. The issue comes with the machining on the top cap. So these airflow holes here on the inside, they're each 1.5 millimeter diameter, by the way. So on the inside, I can just feel a little bit of sharpness around each one of those holes. Like if I run my nail across them, it gets caught and it scratches up my nail. And what happens is when I take that top cap off, those sharp edges on those air holes was cutting my O-ring. So I actually, the first time I wasn't thinking and I just ripped it right off and I split my O-ring right away. It just sliced it right in half. The second time, because I've had to take the top cap off a few times because I am testing it, putting different builds in it, changing the coil position a little bit, putting different coils in it. I have to take the top cap off quite a few times, and as you can see, it chewed up the O-ring, and eventually the O-ring busted. So this is my third O-ring that I've went through here, and this one I've been much more careful with. I make sure when I'm putting the top cap on, I spin it slightly as I'm pushing down, and I try to make sure that it's not tilting or going at an angle. But you can still see a little bit here. There are some nice little gouges right above where the airflow holes are. You can see there are some gouges all the way around my O-ring. So that's just something I want you to be aware of. Now, Stan did say he reached out to TimesVape, made them aware that they're not doing a good enough job as far as making sure that the inside of those airflow holes are polished and not going to cut up the O-rings. So TimesVape has said that they went back and they're doing that now. So depending on how early, how low of a number you get, you may have that issue with the stainless steel. So something to be aware of. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the next part. So I showed you the top cap, which is the airflow. It is an 810 drip tip. Like I said, the color you get is random. I got this really beautiful purple drip tip. It is a low pro. The outer diameter of it is quite small. It is 810, but be aware that the sides of the top cap are beveled. They come down at a slope. So the bigger the 810 drip tip, you might find that it doesn't sit flush against those fins. So here's the RDA center barrel portion, and I say center barrel portion because this is going to be a two-piece top cap, and then of course you also have two more pieces that we'll talk about. But as you can see here, that the center barrel of this is built out. The airflow here is built all the way out, and this reduces the chamber. This whole center barrel just hugs that build deck and reduces that chamber to just practically just where your coil is. It's just so small inside there. I really like that. He also beveled down the edges there, so is that any condensation or e-liquid that gets there will fall back down into the juice well. So let's go ahead and remove the build deck. So here's that center barrel. You can see Reverie is laser engraved there on the side. There's the inner side. You can see the lip here where the cap slides over the build deck. Now you'll also notice there is, if you can see it there, let me see if I can grab a tool to point at it for you. There is a notch cut out here on this side of your inner barrel, and that notch lines up with the post here on your positive or your negative post. There is a notch as well, and that lines up, and what that does is it makes sure that your top cap goes on the correct way every single time, and it locks down on your barrel. That means no spinning, no having to worry about your airflow coming out of position. It will always be correctly positioned to hit your coils. So I really like that. So let's look at the build deck. Here we have your negative post and your positive post, and then you have your squonk pin, and then you have some fairly deep juice wells on either side of your posts. So because this is a vertical coil, single coil RDA, you've only got one entry point on each side. So here's your negative for your lead and your positive for your lead. Something that's very unique and very interesting that I like about this RDA is that you can actually remove the build deck from the juice well. And I'll go ahead and show you how to do that. So we'll grab it here. You've got some nice little knurling on the side and dual O-rings. We'll go ahead and grab it and just give this a spin. And this whole center system comes out. So here is the juice well. This is actually, you know, where your e-liquid sits when you squonk or when you drip. And as you can see, it is threaded down the center. And on the bottom here of the 510 post, this is the part of the post that screws into your mod. You can see there is a rubber O-ring that sits so as that when you actually screw the post down into your juice well tray, it's not going to leak out the bottom because you have that rubber O-ring to seal it. So what's nice about this that you can remove both the positive and the negative posts together on this 510 is that you can screw it down on a mod or, you know, on a build stand like I'm about to do here, and do your building without anything in the way, without this juice well blocking your accessibility to underneath here when you're wicking. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate that now. The coils that I'm going to be using is the Coilology frame staple. This is in stainless steel 316. These are 3mm ID coils, so I'm going to grab my 3mm coiling rod here that was included with the RDA. So once I've got the coil on that 3mm rod, I'm going to go ahead and make it so my leads are facing opposite directions. So some people choose to take half a wrap off. I usually put half a wrap on just to make sure that I'm not going any lower resistance than what I want my build to be. So let's go ahead and put half a wrap on. And there we go. Now I have half a wrap on each side there, and I can go ahead and install my build. Now the nice thing about this is it does not matter which way you sit your coil. Whether you wrap your coil one way or the other, you're going to just place whichever side that's the bottom and whichever side that's the top right down and let it sit like that. I mean, you practically don't even need any build tools because the coil just naturally sits there centered. But to make sure that my coil is going to stay centered and stay positioned where I want it, I'll go ahead and place it back on my coiling rod, and I'll just place my coiling rod right over top of that squonk pin, and then I'll take my flathead screwdriver and tighten each lead, making sure to hold my coil center so it doesn't get pulled too far away from the center one way or the other. So for this one, just going to place my finger on top of that lead, make sure it's held down there. And then there we go. Both my leads are in. Make sure my coil is centered where I want it. Make sure that both screws are tightened down, which they are. Now I can go ahead and clip my leads. So clip my leads, there's a nice little shelf here that I can just rest my cutters on and clip that nice and flush. Same thing on the other side. There is a nice little shelf that I can get in there and rest my clippers on and cut that. So it allows me to get flush if I want, but if I don't get them exactly flush, I don't have to worry about it shorting out because they are inset a little bit. If there is just a little bit of wire sticking out, it's not going to short out on the barrel. So there we go. My coil is where I want it. It's nice and centered and positioned. So now what I can do, if I can get my coiling rod out, is I can go ahead and adjust my coils, fidget with them, glow them, and then wick them. So we'll go ahead and take this off here. Now when you are screwing the build assembly onto a mod without the juice well, the bottom portion attached, be very careful because you've got more threads now that you can actually screw it too far in. So just snug it up. There will be a gap on my mod because I don't have the bottom portion of the juice well. So now that I've got it there, go ahead and see what my resistance is. Go ahead and lower my watts because I don't want to dry burn a coil that high. Just gonna gently pulse it to make sure there's no hot spots since this is a contact coil. Then we're gonna glow. I'm just gonna glow and pulse my coils, make sure there's no hot spots. Everything seems to be glowing really nicely. There it is, glowing nice and even already. Super simple to build on. So we'll let that cool down and then I'll show you how to wick it. Okay, so the cotton I'm going to be using is just some organic Japanese cotton pads. I'm going to cut a strip off. I usually do a little bit bigger strip than what I actually need. Peel off the outer skins. And then I'm going to roll one end here. I'm just going to pinch that between my fingers, roll it up, and I'm going to go ahead and feed that down through to the bottom. Once it's poking out through the bottom there, because I have it without the build deck, there's nothing getting in my way here, that I can actually get my tweezers straight in from the bottom, pinch that cotton, and pull it through. So I'm just going to sit here and slowly, gently pull that cotton through till I get the amount that I want. So now I've got a nice long tail of cotton. I'm going to go ahead, clip off the part that I had twisted. Because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and split my cotton so that I can feed half of my cotton into each side of the juice well. Pull it through a little more and then go ahead and split it right down the center. Try and make sure that each side is equal. And then what I'll do after I've went ahead and split it down the center, I'm just going to go ahead and tuck one side over here and pull that through. So now I'm happy with that. I've got cotton on both sides of my coil. I can actually keep pulling it down, and then I can go ahead and clip the top tuff here. So I'll show you that. So I'm just going to leave a little bit of a tuff on top because I don't want my cotton to fall down. You know, as you're vaping on it and e-liquid, it's going to start to compress a little bit, and I don't want to risk the cotton falling down and there not being any cotton just above that coil to catch e-liquid. So I'll just leave a nice little tuff right there on top of my coil like that. Got my cotton on each side here. I'll trim those here. So there we go. Got my two tufts. Now I can go ahead and take it off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place this little dish, juice well, whatever you want to call it, back on. I'm going to screw it down nice and snug. I want to make sure that I feel it hit that little rubber gasket in there and then give it a nice snug down turn. I want no chances of there being any leaking, so I'll snug it down. And look at that, I'm wicked, vertical coil. I can go ahead, screw it down on the mod, go ahead and tuck my wicks down into the juice well, just like that. Now I can give it a squonk. Look at that e-liquid just coming right up into those juice wells, saturating that bottom portion. So we can go ahead and put our barrel back on. Remember that notch, so I want to find that notch. That's going to go back in the back towards the tall section. Line that up. Plink it down. There we go. Give it another squonk, and I'm going to squonk this all. Well, I would squonk it all the way up, but it looks like my squonk bottle is almost out of e-liquid. But as you can see, there's no e-liquid coming out of these juice holes on the side. I can go ahead and squonk this all the way up past those juice flow holes, and I don't have any problems with leaking at all. Go ahead and grab my Hit That Cookie macadamia nut and saturate that little tuft on top. And let the e-liquid just fall down the sides of the coil. Gravity, obviously, if you're dripping, gravity is going to do the work for you. The e-liquid's just going to travel right down your vertical coil. Now, if you find that you're squonking, you're going to rely, your cotton's going to rely on ciliary action and e-liquid traveling up. So you want to make sure that you use cotton, that the fibers are facing all in the same direction, going perpendicular with that vertical coil, so as the e-liquid easily travels up those coils. And like I said, squonking in this one, I have no problems with leaking. I can squonk it all the way up, almost all the way to the top of the coil. I probably could get all the way to the top of the coil if it wasn't for the fact that my squonk bottle is almost empty. And I don't have to worry about any leaking from the airflow holes on the side because one, the airflow holes are so small, only being 1.5 millimeters, but also the airflow holes are at an angle. So they're angled so as that when you e-liquid comes up, they can't come out the holes as easily because you're going at an angle this way. So e-liquid just falls right back down those airflow holes back into the build deck, which I really like. So let's go ahead and put our top cap on. Now I highly recommend that when you're putting your top cap on, make sure that you have some e-liquid on those O-rings just to allow it to more easily slide over them. So put some e-liquid on the O-rings. Go ahead and just carefully stick it down there. Line up our airflow. I've got my airflow on the 6 full open. As you can see, I'm tilting it, no problems with leaking. And let's go ahead and turn our wattage up. This is a 0.27. Go ahead and put it at 60 watts. And there we go. We're vaping. So let's go back up top, have a vape on it, and I'll give you my thoughts and opinions on the Reverie RDA. Alright, so that was the up-close look of the Reverie RDA. So what are my thoughts? Well, first let's go into the pros. The first pro I have is going to be on the design of the packaging and the quality of the product. I feel like the packaging design was really beautiful. The accessories, of course, they covered all of the accessories that would be needed. Also including 2 coiling rods that were ceramic, so not only can you use them to adjust your coils and coil your wire, but you can also be using them while you're firing your coil since they are ceramic and non-conductive. I will note though, those ceramic coiling tools get really hot just like a metal tool would, so be very careful if you're using them while pulsing your coils. The next pro I'm going to have is that it has a locking barrel. So the fact that Stan designed it so that the barrel locks into place means that when you go to unscrew your RDA or when you're screwing your RDA on, that airflow never gets out of center of the coil, and also you don't deal with not being able to get your RDA off of your mod if you happen to over tighten it. So big pro for that. The next pro is going to be that reduced chamber. it being a single coil RDA, it's really important, in my opinion, that the chamber be small to maximize on the flavor. And Stan did this really well with that very nice reduced chamber built into the airflow on that center barrel that he did. Next is going to be the airflow. Oh my gosh, this airflow is so smooth. No matter what setting I have it on, I find that the smoothness of the airflow never changes. I never have a spot in which it's either gets whistly or anything like that. And I'll go ahead and show that. So right now it's on the maximum airflow, which is 6 holes straight down the center. Nice, slightly restrictive, direct lung. This isn't a Clouds Bro Clouds RDA. Obviously, it's a single coil vertical style RDA. So you're not going to have a ton of airflow, but it's wide open. It has a little bit of restriction to it, and that's actually my favorite spot to have this RDA set. Next, we're going to go ahead and go to the 5-hole option. Again, still direct airflow, direct lung airflow, and still just a little bit of restrictiveness, just a little bit more than those 6 holes. And honestly, when I'm not running 6 holes, 5 holes, I would say those two are almost neck and neck between 5 holes and 6 holes for me. I like them both. Now we're going to go down to 3 airflow holes. Very restrictive direct lung, but still very smooth, and the flavor on that just pops. Like, it's just all concentrated flavor, but for my personal vaping is a little too restricted. And then of course your single airflow, which I assume might be trying to do the mouth to lung. Still really smooth, but very hard to direct lung. Let's do mouth to lung. I wouldn't say this is a mouth to lung RDA at all, but if you're someone that likes really, really restrictive direct lung hit, you can do it with that single airflow because you got 2 single airflow holes on both sides. Let's go ahead and open it back up. So as I said, airflow super smooth no matter what setting you have it. That's a big pro for me. Next is going to be that innovative removable build deck. The fact that I can remove the build deck from the what I would call juice well means that I'm able to easily access the coil to wick it, to build it, to dry burn it, all of that. The fact that I can screw it down on my mod without the juice well, do everything that I need to do, and then take it off and put it back, put the juice well plate back on it, is a huge pro. It made building and wicking vertical coils the easiest I have ever seen it personally. Now let's go into some personal things I want to talk about with vertical coils versus horizontal coils. So if you're new to vertical coils, you've never tried them before, there's a few things that I would like to point out about the differences between vaping on a horizontal coil and a vertical coil. And for comparison, I'm going to use the recurve RDA because when you look at the airflow, they do seem similar, though the mechanism in which they work is a little different. You got a single horizontal coil in the recurve RDA, and you have a single vertical coil in the Reverie RDA. And to me, the vape on both of these are the best that I've ever had. Now, I've not had every single RDA out there. I know there are some horizontal RDAs that are single coil out there that are phenomenal on flavor. I think the recurve is phenomenal on flavor. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about flavor and vapor production. As far as vapor production goes, I feel that these both are the same. Whether you're horizontal or you're a vertical, you're going to get the same vapor production from that single coil if you're using similar builds, which I have pretty much the exact same resistance and type of wire build in both of these. But where they differ is going to be in the type of flavor and the type of vape that you get off of them. To me, with a horizontal single coil like this, I have the coil very close to my mouth. And the e-liquid, it's going to pop. Any coil is going to pop and spit a little bit of e-liquid. With the horizontal coil, that e-liquid spits directly into my mouth. And I particularly do not like hot e-liquid spitting into my mouth. I am on the cool side of a vapor. I don't vape at extremely high wattage. I would like to say I'm kind of probably middle of the road. I like my vapes to be warm, but not hot. So with a warm vape on a horizontal coil, I still get a little bit of hot e-liquid going into my mouth and sometimes burning my lip or burning my tongue. With a vertical coil, you're never going to experience hot e-liquid, or in my experience, I've never experienced hot e-liquid going into my mouth. And that is because I have the cotton tuft at the top facing my mouth and not the coil. So if you take the top cap off and you fire this coil, it acts just like a horizontal coil. You see e-liquid bubbling and spitting and popping off the side of that coil, but it's hitting the barrel, the chamber of the RDA, and not coming up that drip tip. So for me, this is really pleasurable because I don't have hot e-liquid going into my mouth. Now, I will say, the way that the e-liquid spits and spats and kind of vaporizes off the coil, being the same on both coils, whether it be horizontal or vertical, you're not gonna have as a wet of a vape, if that makes sense. It's hard to describe. With a vertical coil, it's not as wet. There's not as much small particles of e-liquid going into your mouth. So the experience, the vape on it is different. The flavor is going to be different. I pick up notes of my e-liquid differently in a vertical coil than I do a horizontal coil. So if you're just trying a vertical coil, if you do decide to go out and buy the Reverie RDA, be aware the vape is going to be different, but it's still going to, in my opinion, be a really satisfying flavored vape. Now let's go over to some cons, because I do have a few cons on this RDA. The first con is going to be the curved top. I do love the design. I like the look of the Reverie RDA. For me personally, visually, aesthetically, it's pretty. I like it. I love the polished stainless steel. It looks great on my brushed steel Rage. But he curved the top of that cap so as it comes down at an angle. Now this particular 810 drip tip looks great. It sits flush, but it's a smaller 810 drip tip, so you don't have much space there that's flat at the top. So if I take one of these drip tips, like let's take my recurve drip tip, which is much wider at the bottom because it has a curve in it, it doesn't necessarily sit flush on those fins. So depending on which drip tips you have, they may not sit flush because it is a curve. So if you're someone that likes the really fat, wide drip tips, they're not going to look that great on there. So that might be a con to some people. My next con is only against, really, it's nothing against Stan. It's nothing against the design or the performance of the RDA. It's a machining issue, and that is that the airflow holes on the inside are not polished that well, so they were chopping up and eating up my O-ring whenever I would put my top cap on. So I have to be, I have to give it a con for that. I have to be honest with you guys. I busted 2 O-rings right out of the gate using this device. And I want to let you guys be aware of that. Now, like I said, in the up and close, Stan has assured me that TimesVape has went back and they have resolved that issue. And hopefully none of you will have that issue. But for me, gonna mention it as a con, that those airflow holes can chew up your O-rings. And that's all the cons that I have for this device. And really, overall, I like this device. If you're interested in trying a single coil vertical RDA, I would highly recommend this one. Great job, Stan. Great job, TimesVape. Thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, hit that subscribe button. If you are subscribed, hit the notification bell icon so you get notified the next time I upload a video. Until next time, you guys, Bye-bye.